Oh, it's recording. Oh, I hope so. I hit the button. But yeah, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I've had allergies the last couple of days because I went out to eat and had to eat outside at, sorry. There's a local place called Willard Hicks Steakhouse. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't been there in over a year. They finally have seating and had, oh wow, like the best green beans I've ever had. And I don't eat green things normally, except asparagus. But it was really, really good. Nice steak, and they stack their French fries like they cut them big, and they make a pyramid out of them. And yeah, yeah, it was great. And then today I went to a place called Funny Farm where they have poutine. Yeah, San Jose, California, poutine. It's hard to believe, but anyway, because I was outside though, I picked up pollen. I've been keeping my windows closed here because of it, but so hope my voice isn't too scratchy. It was the last couple days. But I just saw some video from Nick Lucid, a physicist I watch on thing. He has some pretty funny stuff he does with characters and animations, and he has multiple copies of himself that talks to himself. And yeah, it's a good channel. I always like watching him. He's fun and entertaining, and it's been good to watch over the last year or two or so. But today, a special announcement on his own channel saying that he's autistic. And yeah, it's interesting. I had a friend of mine who was a psychiatrist, psychologist. I think he's a psychologist actually. Said, "Oh yeah, I'm probably autistic." It's like, really? I never. It was devastating when I heard it at first because then I was like, oh, then I realized it's just a label, right? So I don't know if I am or not. I've never went in for professional evaluation, but some friends have told me that before. So, but what does it mean? It's just a label saying, well, we've grouped these things together, therefore you're that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I already know how to deal with. I've learned over the years how to deal with certain things, and to an extent that I can. And said definitely I've had more challenges with the lockdowns, but I do what I can. But debris, which was the whole reason that I started this whole thing. Sorry, I wasted 2 minutes of time talking about me and other stuff. But I was curious about debris. The season ended, and it's a show I really wanted to like. There was a short story called wait, what was it called? The Picnic? Oh no, I forgot the name of it. I can't believe that. Roadside Picnic. That was what it was called. Phew. Russian novel. If you ever read Russian science fiction, it's very different than American science fiction or British science fiction. They're always kind of depressing too. But this one was kind of interesting. Roadside Picnic was a story about there's places all over the world, but this one was in Russia where people just don't go because weird stuff happens there. People suspect that aliens stopped by and like threw out their garbage and then took off, and they left their crap all over the place, and their stuff, their random roadside garbage affected the reality around them. So uh, there was some, but there was everybody tries to get to this one hut that if you get there, supposedly it'll grant your wish. But even though it was right in front of them, they couldn't necessarily walk there because there was things like the grinder, which would be if somebody went through this one area, the first person to go through would be twisted into like sausage, and then the next person can go through safely. Or you'd go somewhere and it would warp you to some other spot in reality, or you'd get a phone call from a dead relative, or just weird stuff would happen. They made a movie about it. The same thing. I don't think it's called Roadside Picnic. I forget the name of the movie. That was kind of a weird movie. Very slow because the guy's constantly throwing these weights. Like he has this weighted thing on a string. He throws it to make sure that reality is consistent between him and the weight. And then he's trying to lead these people to this place, and they're just constantly moving forward slowly. And he tries to judge which direction to throw the weight. And eventually, it's eventually weird stuff happens in a way that I still have no idea what actually happened in the story. Pardon me. But and that was a really interesting story. The concept was really good. And the book was different than the movie. Now, the movie was Russian as well. Um, it starts off in black and white and goes to color as they get to the alien landscapes. And there's like a half hour to an hour of them trying to avoid the police getting to the alien landscape and all that stuff. But the book takes off from there. And the debris sounded like a similar concept. The idea that alien junk lands on Earth and it has random powers and random stuff going on. And I thought, oh, cool, this will be an American treatment of that. And I was looking forward to that. But they had the main characters, which, if you've watched it, I'll probably have spoilers throughout this. Um, there was Brian and I always think it's Fiona, but her name is spelled Finola, which I don't remember them ever saying for some reason. I can't picture that. It took me until like the last episode to remember Brian's name because they sent it on text. I mean, it's like after 13 episodes, it was run. The same person who did Fringe did this one, and I liked Fringe a lot because Fringe had that similar kind of idea, like weird stuff's going on in the world, but we don't know what it is. And this one tried to have a similar concept, but it just the main characters they didn't stand out. Like in Fringe, I know the main characters' names and I know their personalities. And this one, I still don't know what their personalities are. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it beyond that. I mean, yeah, their personalities were kind of bland, and they didn't really take off like they should have. They didn't do all the stuff they could have. Um, and then at the end, in the final episode, they try to. Someone said they edited it to make it that way, but they put a lot of stuff in. They kept saying, "Oh, bombshells will be dropped in the final episode," and it's like, well, instead they just had a ton of stuff that they revealed about the past, but without actually revealing anything. Like Brian in the previous episode of the show, he was in a war and in Afghanistan, and because of that, he had some weird experience that the aliens were trying to show him, or the craft was trying to show him, or the debris. And yeah, but each week is just at the beginning was just like monster of the week. They find a piece of debris, it does something. This one clones people. This one sucks stuff into another space. This one opens up a portal through time and space. This one causes people to be able to breathe nitrogen instead of oxygen or something. And each one had some random effect, and it was always kind of resolved. But the main character somehow had this weird attraction or helping each other, like they're the best of friends, even though they're both supposed to be spies representing their governments. They didn't act like that at all. It was, I don't know, very disconcerting. It was hard to put together that way. But I mean, I liked the overall. I mean, it was a fun series to watch. I mean, I hope it continues in many ways, but it was so slow and plotting, and I said it really didn't pull together. It's like they should. I don't know. I think if I were in charge, I would have edited it differently and made it more. Oh, yeah, made it more exciting and interesting. So. Or just pull together the science stuff. I mean, it's supposed to answer a lot of questions. Like the idea was there's supposed to be this group called Influx who's trying to get the pieces of the debris and release it to the public so everybody gets free access to it. It's like, okay, well, that sounds like a noble goal, just kind of like F Society and Mr. Robot or things like that. It's like, oh yeah, they want society to be free. Except Influx has like killed people constantly. And they've tortured people and they've done horrible things, and there's no reason why they've done that. It's like at some point they wanted to teleport half of New York City somewhere. It's like, well, why? Well, what was the point of it? I think it was New York City. Some city. I think it was New York. But the idea is that they've just been like a terrorist group throughout the entire thing, and yet somehow they're supposed to be the good guys who are freeing stuff. And her father turns out to actually be the head of Influx. And spoilers! No, I said there'd be spoilers. And uh, and her father throughout the entire thing, I'd been saying, it's like he only appeared in the last couple episodes, but ever since then, they're like, oh yeah, he was the man. He knew about the debris and what it really represented and the alien science behind it. But he constantly gave him the worst possible advice. It's like, oh, don't do that, or the universe will collapse. And it's like, no, they actually had to do that, or else the universe would have collapsed. Oh, don't do that, or the same thing. It's always like, if you do that, the universe will collapse. And it turned out that it was actually the opposite every time. And so I was like, okay, so either this guy's really messed up, or he's misleading him purposely, but somehow no one else realizes it on the show. It's like, every time we ask him something, he gives us the wrong advice, and yet they still believed him. And then, surprise, surprise, it turned out in the final episode, yeah, he was working against him. He was the head of the terrorist organization that's supposedly the good guys. And it's like, okay. And somehow he thought he came back to life in the series, as you probably know, and because his daughter thought he was dead. The daughter happened to be the agent on the team, and he realized, he said, oh, if I come back, if I kill myself, the alien, the debris will bring me back stronger than I was before. I'm like, well, how did he know that? Why did he believe that? Why would you think? It's like, oh, well, this is true. It's like, well, how did they have experiments? They have something? He figured it out by himself? Yet he's constantly asking for notes from this Ligari guy. It's like, so obviously there's other people who knew more about debris than he did, but yet he staked his entire life on something that he barely knows about. And at least based on the evidence that we have from the show, they say he's the expert on it, but is this more like he's a random kind of person? I mean, if you look at in Fringe, I mean, the one guy, was it John Noble? Was that the actor? Is that yeah? That's the character. No, is that the actor? Anyway, and the one guy who was kind of insane, he actually knew what was going on. And he did. He was correct most of the time. And surprisingly, he made an appearance in the final episode of Fringe with an entirely different accent. And people online are constantly saying it's like, oh well, this is a tie-in. They're trying to try a Fringe to this. It's like, no, it was obviously a different guy, because this guy is like, he knew the answers, but he was obviously infected with the alien stuff and didn't mind about killing people. Whereas, um, no, he played Walter in the series, right? Uh, so Walter, because it was the alternate. But Walter always knew the correct answers. But I guess when we saw how he actually was, if he hadn't had the lobotomy, he was actually kind of didn't mind about killing people or doing stuff. It seemed like whatever it took to get the job done. So, but this character definitely seemed to be a very different person and personality. The actor's just really good about these things. He was in Lord of the Rings as well. But so I don't know. I mean, I liked Debris, and it was something that Mom and I got to talk about because she watched it too. So that was a good experience because of that, and that made it more positive. But just on its own, it's like I said, I kept wanting answers or things, and there was a list online that somebody had on Reddit. Where they talked about all the questions they brought up in the final episode. Because I mean, it's like, well, why is Fiona and or Finola? Why is there a copy of her in a cave? It's like it ends with her. It's like she's been running the show the whole time. Then it ends with this ball of white light, which we have no idea why it was produced or where it came from or why everybody suddenly knows what it is, approaching some Native American person who was out meditating in the desert, playing into those stereotypes. And he walks into a cave saying, "Oh, you've been traveling a long time." And then there's a copy of her in there, trapped in some sort of glowy effect that the debris leaves, as well as some guy who's been torturing people the entire season. Okay, so is there two of her or something? And it's like, and what? Yeah. Then the story of their father. Then there's the whole thing about Brian and what his story is, and he has some. The actor has a scar on his chin in real life, I guess, and then in the series they try to play into that, so that one episode in the past he had a big fake beard on, so that you couldn't see the scar, and he was supposedly got that from the debris somehow, but it's like they never mention it. It just is in some audio thing they play at the end, and he's attacked by the debris, and yeah, there's just so many things that loose ends they didn't tie up, and so many things they tried, and I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be renewed for a second season or not. Is I guess the whole point of it. And I started curious what their actual goal was. I mean, that's the thing. It's like they have a story they want to tell, is what I think about it. Maybe they just want to drag it out. Maybe it's like, okay, I have the story I want to tell. The idea would be this. And usually they say a pitch can be done in like one or two sentences. So they had this pitch idea and they sold to the studio. Like, imagine if debris fell and weird stuff happened. I mean, was that the extent of it? Or was it like, imagine debris fell and it was the future version of us communicating to tell us to a higher plane? Or was it like, oh, getting ready for discovery or disclosure? Aliens were about to announce their presence here. Or was it the multidimensional beings were walking among us? Or, I mean, what was their pitch meeting? I still don't get that after an entire season, because it seemed so disjoint on the episodes. I mean, they had the overall idea of debris, and it had various effects that they never explained, and the characters seemed to understand kind of, because they always had these things and numbers they're reading out, and it's like just saying a bunch of numbers as you're walking around doesn't really inform the audience. I mean, we're supposed to try to tell a story, not keep them guessing. At some point, you can say, okay, well, everybody doesn't explain everything, right? I mean, movies start off often, they're like, tell me again what our plan is, right before they break into the bank vault. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they've already planned in advance. There's no reason to ask that question. And I always hate that in a movie. And so, yeah, I can see if they go to the debris field and go, tell me again, what is this debris stuff? It's like, sure, but in their off time, they'd say, hey, remember how we found what these readings mean? And, oh, yeah, we have to adjust these parameters, and that may do this, or they could have something at least, but it's just they had so many different things that they didn't really explain or tie into anything. And maybe it's just the way it was supposed to be, but it doesn't end up conveying any information then. It's just like, okay, so what range do those numbers mean anything? If they're walking around and go, I'm getting a 12, it's like, okay, is that bad or good? Because last week 3 was bad, and the week before that 15 was bad. So, but 12, okay, 12's in the middle of those two. Is it supposed to be higher than 12, lower than 12, 12 average? Supposed to be 0? Because at some time I think 0 was supposed to be, we're getting no readings. But then it seemed like bad. The higher was bad, and sometimes lower was bad. I didn't really see a consistency. So it's like, well, then what's the point of that dialogue? It doesn't convey any information. So, but anyway, just me rambling about the show, and I hope you. It's many hours of it to ramble about. So maybe if I did a weekly review or something when it was happening. But anyway, if you had any thoughts about the characters or I mean, I really liked some of the episodes. I mean, the one with the where they're constantly jumping universes, and they see, well, what would happen in this universe if they had different partners? Like there's the main point is there's two uh, agencies being represented, one from a British agent and an American agent, traveling around together across the United States only for some reason, looking for these pieces of alien debris. And when they would jump to an alternate dimension, there'd be two different people and one different person, or one person and someone else. Like, it's like, well, I wonder how each of those would have met. Or there's like a lot of backstory. I'm wondering, it's like, says all those people we never even seen before. I could see it. It's like, well, maybe this happened, but that happened. But then, well, how would that have led to these things? It's like changing one thing in your world. It's like, well, that probably couldn't have happened. In order for that thing to change, it would require a lot of other changes. Like if I didn't have this pencil in my hand, it's like I might have had another pen, but this pencil wouldn't have been made. Whoever made it didn't do this, and then they might have gone somewhere else instead. Or there's tons of other things that would have cascaded from that. It's like the butterfly effect. That's the word. I'm going to coin that word, butterfly effect. That's the whole point. It's like any random change would have cascading results. So them being in the exact same spot in the alternate universes, but with a different person, just probably wouldn't happen. So, but it was a good episode, but it was kind of slightly irritating in many ways like that. But like I said, overall, it was fun to watch, but I would have liked for it. I had so much higher hopes for it. So, and I don't know if you watched it, let me know what you thought, or if you had any of the characters you liked. I mean, I said the characters were uneven in many ways, and I definitely think I liked the characters in Fringe a lot better. Um, but uh, but this isn't Fringe. This is Debris. So maybe they'll make Roadside Picnic as a series someday. Or once disclosure happens, because I think that's gonna June 1st is fast approaching, which is the new deadline they say. So we'll see. But anyway, Debris out.